let's just not pay attention to what that bit is, but that's the metal. That's a bit of a mooring pin.
What day is it today?
Sunday?
Where are we going?
Laundry.
What day is it today?
Sunday.
Laundry day.
Ah.
What day is it today?
Laundry day.
So this is where we moored last night. We got to Bath at about 4:30 after leaving Bristol at 8 AM. So we didn't have the energy to go through any of the Bath locks, especially the deep lock. So we stopped at the first available mooring, and now we're off to do our laundry.
Spicy vegetarian sausage roll and a vegetable pasty. Fast touristing in Bath, the pump room. Roman baths, line too long. Bath Abbey, big climb. Inside of the clock, Bath Abbey. Traffic circle, and it is surrounded by all these lovely buildings. It is circuitous, it is circular, it's a circus, the Bath Circus. Again, vegetable bake, jam donut, iced ring donut. Bright sunny day in Bath.
There's a generator going, there's a builder going, there's our engine going, so you might not even be able to hear us. So we arrived 2 days ago, and we were going to go and moor between the locks.
But she chickened out.
I basically have the fear of the deep lock, so I kept saying, let's just stay down here. It's nice down here.
But it's been good. We've been able to do sort of walking tours of the old town of Bath and look around.
Someone requested maps in our blog, so I've tried to do that here to show where we've come and what section we're doing today. So today we're heading to Bradford on Avon and just doing the little section between that. We think it's about 4 hours.
We think.
But also doing the map has made me realise like how we basically spent 2 months going nowhere and then 3 weeks doing
like rocket speed to the end and back.
It's quite interesting to see how far we've got to go back in the next 4 weeks.
Yep.
Starting today?
Well, technically starting 2 days ago, but we still got time to go.
So we've got to the deep lock and someone's filling it, but they're not even through the lock before it, so they're filling 2 locks in a row, whereas if they just waited, they could have filled it with us in it. So we're now waiting for them to go down 2 locks because we don't want to just empty it for the sake of it. It's literally 20 minutes later. The deep lock's full waiting for them and they still haven't come through the lock above. Like, we could be up by now. So we've come a mile.
Yeah.
We've had an interesting morning. We went through the first lock, which is lock number 7.
Mm-hmm.
And then right after it is Bath Deep Lock. And it was empty because when it's full you can see water like leaking through the doors. So we knew it was empty. But so I walked up to it to open the doors to find it was nearly
starting to fill.
Yeah, like maybe a third full. But I couldn't work out what was going on. The top paddles were open, but there was no boats or people in sight. So I walked up a little bit and then saw the lock above, and they were filling that one as well. So basically, a boat 2 locks above us were filling 2 locks at a time.
trying to prepare the way for themselves.
Which is fair enough if there's no boat coming, but they didn't bother to look to see that we were sitting there waiting. So by the time I'd worked it out, it was half full, so I thought, just wait for it to fall, which was a mistake because they took forever to come down.
Yeah.
But the good news is, by the time that they'd come down the deep lock, which took like probably an hour, no, about 40 minutes, there was another boat coming down behind them who had 2 lock keepers with him.
Yeah. So we got some lockies. In fact, we'd already met them. These were the ones who helped us down the last time, the volunteer couple, and they were very, very nice.
Really nice.
And
they helped us up the deep lock, which wasn't fun. Like, it wasn't fun for me outside, but it was even less fun for you. We had George outside, and he's refusing to get on. Like, there's no more locks till Bradford.
But he's going to walk to Bradford.
Because he's just sitting there looking at us, refusing to get on the boat.
He's like, there's no way we're taking.
Are you crazy?
Yeah, absolutely nuts.
So, and then the lock keepers very nicely helped us up the last 4 locks, which were pretty uneventful.
Yeah, and then we got here onto the water point to fill up.
So it's been an interesting morning, but look at George.
Totally zen. He's a good dog.
Come on the boat.
Sometimes, really, like occasionally, good dog.
To Bradford.
To Bradford upon Avon.
No, it's Bradford on Avon.
Damn it.
I don't know the difference between upon and on, but it's definitely Bradford on Avon.
Well, I wish I hadn't said upon in an email, but oh well.
George has refused to get on the boat. He just keeps dropping his ball. I think he wants to play with his ball. So me and him are going to walk and Michael's going to ride. Michael's got the easy job. We've just come along through Barthampton and this boat's had its pins pulled out, so we're just going to try and pull it and repin it. Michael's just pulling our boat in. You can see the pins being completely ripped out. So we're going through Barthampton.
And we come to a screeching halt as we come around the corner, because basically the boat had worked its way loose right at sort of the apex of a turn.
And it was 3/4 of the way across, so
yeah.
the bow line was barely on, but the pin had been pulled out, and the stern line was completely out.
And hanging loose in the water,
yeah.
Just dragging on the
Luckily,
bottom.
He'd looped it, so it was still attached, but it was at the bottom of the canal,
yeah.
At the end of the rope. So I climbed on the boats at the bow and walked along the gunnel and got the centre line and threw that back to Michael, and then you were able to pull it back in.
Then once pulled in, we were able to retrieve the mooring pin from the water, and basically I started to hammer in the mooring pins. Yeah, it's mud, so you have to put in the mooring pin and then you put sort of a nail through it, and they had these kind of like aluminum mooring pins that weren't in particularly great shape, and then these great big iron nails, these huge things. I don't know how many good whacks I gave it, but one of them, there was suddenly, you gotta imagine this nail's, about an inch in diameter, 2.5 centimeters for everyone else, and it's rusty as can be. It's just, it's got this orange patina on it, and as I'm hammering it, all of a sudden there's just a bang, and there's a shiny spot on the nail, and so I was shot in the leg with a piece of shrapnel. I
carried on.
Yeah, tried to carry on. I was screaming a bit
because it swore a bit, shouted at me because I was like, "Oh, did it chip off?" Yes, it chipped off.
Yeah, well, because I was walking around in circles going, ow, 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 because it really hurt. Okay, finished up, got the mooring pins in, story's sort of done, boat's secure, stand up, and I start feeling liquid going down the inside of my leg. So yeah, I was like, crap, I'm bleeding. Cool, so I jumped on the boat, went to the bathroom, inspected the area and found a blood spot on my trousers and a small hole in the fabric. There's the potential of there being a not very large, but still, noticeable slug of recently in the canal, multiply dog urinated on iron in my inner thigh. My main thought at first was, there's blood coming down my leg, and this is the area of my femoral artery. So, okay, I've made it onto the boat and made it to the bathroom before my leg is completely soaked in blood and I'm unconscious. It's probably not the femoral artery. I think about an hour and a half I waited in the A&E, and like you gotta understand, I was really embarrassed in a lot of ways, because there's a whole bunch of people sitting around me with like casts, broken bones. There's a guy in the back who has had a motorcycle accident and is like missing flesh. There were people of much higher priority than me. There were a whole bunch of other people who were just there with their cold or their flu or whatever, and were just sort of not understanding the system. But there's certainly people who are high priority, and me with this tiny little piece of shrapnel. So I got no problem waiting. I'm like, whatever. I get called in for the x-ray, and there's this huge x-ray bay with this machine that like moves things around and stuff, and they're trying to figure out how to point it at my crotch, and they're very nicely like holding this little piece of lead in place, just gently trying to move this piece of lead over top of my genitals.
To protect them.
Yeah, to keep them from being irradiated. And I'm just like, okay, well, that's good, thank you.
I appreciate that.
Appreciate that. Heavy. But then the girls behind the counter were like, oh yeah, there it is. So they let me come over and look at it, and sure enough, there's the exact shape, weird little piece of metal that was missing off the iron thing inside of, the adipose tissue underneath the non-adipose tissue. The good thing is, an inch and a half to the north, I would have been, I'd have been talking a little higher. So, overall, I had to consider myself lucky. That led to another wait, and then another wait, and eventually I got called back, and there's a nurse practitioner who, she's going to try and fish it out of my leg. So good fun. I get sat down in a nice little chair and handed a sort of like a scuba regulator with a little nozzle on it. Now, I've never had nitrous oxide before. I know it exists, but I've never tried it. So she's just like, just suck on this. Well, okay. Put it in my mouth. It's like 3 breaths, and I'm like, oh, this is freaking weird, man. My teeth start hurting, my voice starts sort of going weird, and it starts feeling more and more black, like everything's kind of closing down on me. But she gives me a shot of lidocaine. It starts to freeze. She starts, reefing around with a little pair of tweezers. I'm fascinated. I'm just like, oh, can I videotape this? They don't want me to videotape it. It's too bad. There'd be footage. Imagine a pair of tweezers that long, and this much of it is being jammed inside of your inner thigh. About a couple of inches below things you're sort of trying to keep out of the way. I'm suggesting, like, get a magnet. Like, just a magnet, like just bring in a magnet. There it goes, it's gone. She couldn't find it. She tapped it a couple of times, but she couldn't find it. She gave me another shot of lidocaine that was deeper inside, went and talked to the doctor, and then the doctor comes in. He reefed around a lot more, a lot further, ended up putting in a scalpel and slicing open the wound a little bit longer to make it more accessible. More reefing around, more clicking into the metal, but never quite being able to get a grip on it. He did get a grip a couple of times on other tissues, so that was also painful. That leads to, well, the clinical determination is there's nothing we can really do. We can't get the metal out. What we'll do is we'll put in a great bloody big syringe, and we will fill it with water, saline, and we will just squirt it inside there to clean it out. They flushed it out, got all of the material, foreign bodies and everything that they could out.
Did you see bits come out then?
Of metal?
Yeah.
No, it would have all been the microscopic stuff, like anything that was sort of still attached. The idea is to try and clean the metal as much as possible, clean the wound as much as possible, then give me a tetanus shot and an immunoglobulin booster, which basically just increases my immune response, and then a lot of antibiotics, and then just seal it up under a bandage. And hopefully nothing yellow starts coming. It's called a granuloma. Effectively, my body will just produce a layer of tissue around it, which will eventually harden into kind of a scar tissue-y lump. So it just becomes separated off. You know, they said that if it was cloth or organics, then it's really bad. Like, it can be really bad. So that's why they want to flush it out, to make sure that there wasn't any like pieces of the fabric from my trousers or anything, because that's the sort of stuff that killed people in World War One. And it can be very, very bad. But metal, plastics, most inert, non-organic things are really not a problem. So your body will eventually form a granuloma.
The thing is, like, his mooring pin wasn't the best mooring pin, but what caused it to come out was probably a boat going past him far too fast.
Yeah, or several of them.
Causing the pins to come out. We were moored there all night.
No movement.
Yeah, a metre, 10 metres away. We had no problem, but only like 3 or 4 boats went past at a reasonable speed, so...
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. At the end of the day, it wasn't anybody's fault. It was just...
But no, it was the boat that went past too fast.
Well, yeah.
Don't go too fast.
Yeah,
Slow
don't go
down
too fast.
Past more boats.
But also be careful hammering your pins.
So yeah, so we were planning to come to Bradford that day, but we had to stay overnight in Bathampton.
It was really funny coming out of the hospital, getting on the bus and finding myself exactly where we had started the morning.
So then the next day we had to go to Bradford, and it was a nice trip.
This boat here was loose when we came around the corner, and it tried to kill me because I had to hammer that thing in. A nice little bit of metal right here, which really doesn't look like that much. It's like
in your leg.
half the size of a pea, and it's stuck in here forever. I can't walk past big magnets, and I'm going to set off airport security for the rest of my life because of that goofy little pin.
There's a cute little shop here, farm shop, by the swing bridge, and everything goes to charity. It's really cool. It's the cutest little shop. But I'm really sad there's only one egg left.
Yeah, so we stopped in the Dundas Basin, which is behind us here, in front of us here. Anyway, and this is the Somerset Coal Canal, which used to be a 10-mile long canal and now is a 1/4 mile long, really skinny marina. Can't really see it from here, but there's a tiny little stop lock, which is the smallest lock we've seen so far. It's just a single arm. And adventuresome morning on our way towards Avon because George jumped in the canal at one point to chase a coot, because George is a bad dog. And then a little while later he sort of fell in the canal by accident. Didn't really mean to, just kind of went and belly flopped in, and then Joe had to crawl on hands and knees to drag him out of the water, which was quite funny because all I heard was a yell of "George!" and a splash, and then I turned around to see what was happening, and a duck nearly hit me in the face. The duck that George was chasing. So good fun. And yeah, then we got here and we thought about stopping at the water point, but it was full. So we went across the aqueduct, which we're going to go look at now. So on to Aqueducty. Oh, and there's a big dog.
Across the top, you've got no idea how
much infrastructure you're on.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because it's like since nobody's navigating the river at all.
No one gets to appreciate it.
And the trains pass through, you know, over on the other side. So like these three are really only appreciated
By the
apparently
cows.
by cows and sheep and the occasional person that walks down a set of vertiginous stairs. So they've given me nitrous. Good stuff. Very nice.
What did you forget, Michael?
Never forget. Never forget. You do it. Forget each other. You undo the rope. You don't remember in the last second, wait a minute. Then you just end up out in the middle of the river going, I can't do anything. Because it turns out dogs are not really allowed in churches.
Michael, this is really heavy. You either have to hold it or you don't waffle.
Okay, I think we're done. No more waffling. All right, we're off. Deep lock, next after.
That doesn't make sense.
Sense making, not much. We're gonna have that sound. That's George just chewing his ball.
You heard his name then. Georgie, on the boat! On the boat!
He's not gonna come out of it.
Looks like me and George are walking.
Yeah. Hello.
Hello.
Hello. There was a couple of times during this walk where it's just like, ugh. Okay, I don't speak British boating sign language, but I need to learn. Yeah, I mean, it's the sort of thing you'd use to kill vampires if they were susceptible to rust, but, I mean, it's not an area with a whole bunch of blood supply, but when they start squirting water into it and everything, you start getting clots and everything out that were starting to clot inside there, so it's pretty gross.
Pretty gross.
If I start getting a fever or anything yellow starts seeping out or anything like that,
You're quite hot.
yeah, that's because I'm sitting in the sun. The goofy part about it is that eventually it'll just sort of segment it off, and I'm totally fine and totally safe, unless at some point in the future I ever get an MRI. Because if the machine turns on and I'm in a magnetic field that strong, it'll just yank the thing out in whatever direction it feels like going in. It's because if it hadn't been me hammering it when that thing fractured and it shot off, it could have been somebody else. And that person could be talking at a higher pitch. Or dead, or blind.
Or they could have been wearing jeans and not like little fabric trousers, and then it would have just bounced off.
It's my pants' fault ultimately.
Trousers.
Damn it.